My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska. My mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching in real estate. Today, we are talking about Wasilla. We're talking about ups and downs, the challenges, the big things that are happening, and we're going to be talking all things Wasilla. If this is an area you're considering moving into, great option, has a lot of offer, and I think it's really kind of up and coming in kind of the South Central Alaska area just in general. So we'll be talking about that today. Before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, do all the stuff that's going to make the algorithm bless this content. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. One of the biggest challenges of living in Wasilla, first off, is that the roads and the infrastructure here weren't really designed for the number of people that are currently living here. There is approximately a 4% increase every year for the population in Wasilla, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but once you stack that on top year after year, you can start seeing how our roads can start feeling pretty congested. Just not because there's just hordes of people going through, but just because our roads weren't designed to funnel this number of people through there. Also, the number of people that are commuting through Wasilla to get to Anchorage, because that's where they work every day, is really making a lot of the roads and infrastructure feel a lot more congested than it should for the number of people who actually live here. Another thing that's a little bit of a challenge here is just that there's less buildable land than what there was like a couple decades ago. Now, there is still a lot of buildable land in the Matsu Valley, like enormous swaths of it. And also, we're starting to get to a point in some places where you have to be really careful, because the reason someone hasn't built on it already is because you can't, because the ground either won't support any kind of a septic system, or it's just boggy, and you've got muskeg and a lot of other issues with the raw land there. So that is something you should really be paying attention to. We've had a lot of building going on, and with that being the case, if you do find some land, you just really want to make sure that there's not a reason someone hasn't already built on it. Again, way more available land to build on than what you're going to find in some place like Anchorage, though, still. One thing to be aware of that's kind of coming down the pike, this isn't really like a bad thing or a challenge, but it is something to be aware of, is that there's actually going to be gas installed for the homes over in kind of like the Meadow Lakes, Big Lake area. I think it's more like the Meadow Lakes area right now. And that's a big deal, because right now they're relying on like those big oil drums, and that's all fine and good. It's a very expensive source of heat, though. And for the homes in that area, that's going to be a big deal, because they're going to be able to get a lot more affordable source of heating. And that's going to make the property values in that area go up, at least projected to go up in the near future, just because they are connected to the utilities. And obviously, that's probably not going to happen just overnight. That's going to be a matter of, about a decade or so of kind of the process doing its thing. But that's kind of a welcome development for people in that area. You're always going to have people that just don't want to be on the grid at all, and so they're not going to connect to the gas. But still, that is a development that is coming up here in the near future. Another challenge that people in the Matsu Valley and Wasilla in general need to be able to kind of come to grips with is developing infrastructure for the schools. We did have one school earlier this year that did have kind of an issue with the septic system. They actually, like first day of school, had to send all the kids home because there was an issue with the septic, and it was a giant mess. So yeah, just but infrastructure stuff like that at schools need to have kind of a closer eye on them to make sure that they're operating and kids can go to school and not worry about, septic coming up through the toilets and all that good stuff. All right, let's go and take a break real quick here, though. For those who've been watching for a bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast. And if you're considering moving up here to Alaska, you definitely want to go check that out, because I interview people who have recently moved up here to Alaska, and we kind of dissect with them what it's like living here, the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, everything. And to make sure that you hear not just from myself talking about it, but you hear from other people as well. And we also have a relocation guide for those of you who are considering moving up here. If you're just trying to get a sense for the area, feel free to go ahead and register on my website. Link for that is in the description section down below. Just put relocation guide in the comment section so I know what to send you, and we'll make sure that gets over to you. Now, let's finish today's video. Now, one challenge for the Mat-Su Valley that's kind of a challenge and kind of a blessing depending on what side of the equation you're on is that home prices in the Mat-Su are usually appreciating at a faster rate than what you're going to see over in Anchorage. Well, there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, the home prices in general in the Mat-Su Valley are lower than what they are over in Anchorage, despite the fact that the houses are usually larger on average here in the valley. And they're usually on much bigger lots. Kind of an acre is kind of the more or less par for the course up here in the valley. And also they're going to be significantly newer than what you're going to find out in Anchorage. I think the average year built was 2001 last time I checked for the Mat-Su. And if you're looking over in Anchorage, it's like 81. So you can see there's a big difference in how new properties are over in the Mat-Su. So that being the case, even with all that though, people have to from Wasilla usually to get to Anchorage, and that does make the property values somewhere closer to about that 380, 390 average year-to-date price, as opposed to about 100,000 more over in Anchorage. So Anchorage is always going to be more expensive just because it's closer to work and there's less buildable land and everything over in Anchorage. But we do see that the price rate at which the properties are appreciating is at a faster clip in Wasilla as compared to Anchorage. So that's kind of a good thing. Can also be a challenge though if you're trying to get into it, because it's like, it's marching at a faster pace than it is over in Anchorage, but also starting at a lower price point, so there's something. A big challenge also that's kind of ongoing for Wasilla is we do get quite a bit of wind here during the winter time, and this kind of goes for Palmer as well. Like there's kind of a lot of wind just in the Mat-Su Valley in general, just because obviously it's a valley and then you've got a glacier at the far end of it. So you have like a lot of winds just coming to and from that area depending on the time of day. And if you have a lot of trees, those can fall down, land on the power lines, and power's out for an undisclosed amount of time. Usually it's up and going within like a couple of hours. Sometimes it might be longer though. So that's definitely an ongoing challenge, and you can see a lot of the utility folks out there just cutting trees down that are right next to the power lines, which, we love our trees and everything. But if that's going to be the difference between everyone's power going out during the winter time, most people are more than willing to make that trade-off. All right, so this next one, I'm going to give it to you straight, and I'm sure some people are going to be upset that I said it, but Wasilla has kind of been loosey-goosey with the zoning requirements and every here for so long. There hasn't really been any kind of a central planning on how the area is going to develop, and that really has kind of fit the personality of the people that moved here, really up to this point, and still true to today, where, hey, we want to move into an area, I want to be able to do whatever I want with my land, and I don't want to have like overbearing control on what it is that I'm doing. Okay, great. That's all fine and good. But let's zoom back here. You're about 10,000 feet up in the air and you see like a church right next to a house, which is right next to a mechanic shop, which is right next to a commercial property. Right next to that is like a couple more houses, and then you have a dog kennel, and it's just kind of chaos as far as the zoning is concerned. So that has been a challenge for Wasilla, just for acquiring grants that are going to allow it to be able to develop more of this infrastructure, which is going to alleviate the congestion and like all the other services that we need in order to make sure that everything operates in a really smooth, safe way. So yeah, the zoning, it's kind of been a blessing and a curse that we can just do whatever we want, but you kind of pan back a little bit and you look at it and it's like, maybe we should start having a little bit more intentionality. Like no one wants like a lot of really heavy-handed bureaucratic oversight, but also I think we can all agree maybe having a mechanic shop right in the middle of the neighborhood, probably not the best thing for anyone, I would imagine. So yeah, dealing with the zoning and then interacting with the community on the best way to move forward with that, I believe is going to be a challenge in the future for people in Wasilla, because we're starting to develop at such a pace where we need clarity around this. And I think this is really an opportunity for local leaders to kind of step up and, kind of take this topic head on, because I can definitely see the opinions and the perspectives from both sides. Last but not least, Wasilla is a great place to live. It's got a lot of great restaurants. It's starting to have more and more like good stores you can go to and acquire everything that you need. The commercial space is still not something that's very, very well developed here in the area. So if we're going to have a community that's kind of independent of Anchorage, being able to have a commercial center in Wasilla is going to be absolutely huge. And I think it's going to get there eventually, but I don't think it's going to be something that just happens overnight. It is something that's continuing to improve, but it's probably going to be small steps to eventually get there. So this has been my video kind of talking about some of the challenges and opportunities facing Wasilla. And I'm sure hope you found it useful. It might have been triggering for some of you, but thanks for hearing me out. If you have any questions about real estate in the area, do feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching. See you next time.